Hello, hello,
Good afternoon.
hello,
Afternoon, Professor.
hello, hello,
Professor.
hello, Andre. Hello, good afternoon, Sarah. Good morning, Jenna. Oh wait, I gotta do this right. Hold on. There's more people. Sorry. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Oh, getting confused. Sorry, I'm gonna start again. Okay. Hello, Andre. Good afternoon, Sarah. Good morning, Jenna. Hello. Sorry. Hello, Alinelli. Good afternoon, Alyssa. Hello, Kimberly. Good afternoon, Aaron. Good afternoon, Abby. Good afternoon, Aaron. Hello, Eileen. Good afternoon, Rachel. Good afternoon, Alea. Good afternoon, Sharon. Good afternoon, Erica. All right, cool. We're here. I know we're missing somebody right now, sorry. Hello, Ashan. Hello, Marissa. Hello, Sabrina. Hello, Yabo. Hello, I think that's
Hello.
Abby. Amber. Yes. Okay. This is not attendance. You know that, right? This is just me being weird. But okay. But we are missing somebody, which is the board. The board will be returning to us in a moment. Please bear with me for a moment. Right. Okay. Bear with me for one more moment. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Bear with me for one more minute. I'm sorry. I'm getting the board. Oh. Okay. 1 second. Second. Okay. So we're gonna get the board going in a second. I do want to say right now, you guys just did a lot of work. And I do know, I'm pausing slightly because, well, first of all, you might have just noticed that I just assigned new homework to you after the break, but don't be stressed about that. It's super easy and we're going to do it together right now, actually, or in a few seconds. Every one of you who has shown up to this class right now and has turned, well, first of all, every single one of you who is in class right now has turned in the document. I do know that. And I know that no matter what, if the last half hour or whatever could not have been easy or fun for anybody, or the last half hour of whatever you were doing it, right? I mean, these things are never pleasant. No matter, I think they're never. Anyway, if you're here now, you turned it in. That's really good. You should already be relieved and congratulatory, seriously. And it doesn't mean anybody who's not here right now, they may also be relieved and congratulatory, like whatever, we'll find out. But 1 sec. Oh, am I on mute? Wait.
No, you're unmuted. You're good.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, yes. I thought I was on mute for a second. But yes, to that. You should be psyched if you're in class right now. You've done something real if you're in class right now. Sorry, 1 second. One second. So to everybody, a number of things are happening in the private chat right now, and nobody should. There's a number of things happening in the private chat right now, partly because, of course, you all just turned in exams. So nobody is disrupting me. Just everybody bear with me for a second. But like any of you who did put something in the private chat, you're not disrupting me. I'm trying to take it seriously. Don't worry. But hold on a second. Okay. I think that's, hold on a second. Okay. And I have to bring the board back up in a second, but here's the deal, for real. And again, and I hope you guys know at this point, like I have my ups and downs. Everybody has their ups and downs. I think a lot of last semester was one of my downs, and if we all faked it through together, great. But I know physics exams can be what they can be. So what I'm literally telling all of you is that even if you just saw that a new homework assignment just popped in, so it feels like, oh my God, is there no rest for the weary or whatever? The fact of the matter is what we're going to do in class today is something that I think is sort of fun and definitely a break, and it's definitely not quantitative or mathematical. Like we're going to, and especially because it's the last day before break anyway, we're going to clear our head. And you are all getting very much credit for being here. Believe me, it's like noticed in more ways than one. And your time is not going to be wasted, because what we're going to do today is something that I used to do always on like the first or second lab in this class. But we didn't do, I don't think we did it together this semester. So it's actually something that's very important for putting perspective on all the material. It might even help some of us, but it's a break. It's not mathematical thinking. You'll take limited notes. And what I'm saying is the thing that we're going to do right now, all of us are like in a minute, we're not going to go over the exam. We're not going to talk about the exam right now. Like I see that I have them from you guys. I'm psyched. If anybody's like burning for desires on the exact right answers to things or something like that, I can talk personally. And of course, we're going to go over it back after the break. But I think right now, many of us would want to break from it. Number one. Number two, there's nothing more that can be done about it right now. So the homework thing that I just put in Google Classroom, if you saw it, that's technically due April 5th or something, I'd actually like you all to take it out now. You will get 50 points when you turn this thing in, but we're actually going to do it together now. And it's like an activity. And it's like a discussion activity. And we'll hopefully also finish it now, so you won't have to do anything during break, so far as I know. Right. So please, I guess what I'm asking right now is if you're still with me, and I'm going to take a moment to get the board going, but if you're still with me, please take out or see if you found in the Google Classroom assignment stream, it's called Homework 4 Unthingy Things. If you could see that you got it or put it in front of you or something, or if I could get confirmation that any of you got it, or that any of you even here.
Yes, I got it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Arba. Great. Oh, I love it. Okay. It's such a rush of all the things that go. Okay, great. So if you could take that out, and in fact, I'll even say, I mean, well, yeah, if you could take, okay, good. If you can see it, if you can put it on your whatever, if you can, I used to have, oh my God, okay, here's a personal bit. I used to have a, shall we call it a religious school instructor when I went to religious instruction after school. I would go to public school during the day and then go, anyway, whatever, you can guess what religious instruction was. But he used to tell us when he wanted us to memorize things, he would say, I know he was joking, but it was still a really weird, gross joke. He would say, you need to know this, tattoo this on the inside of your eyelid, so every time you blink, you see it. That's a kind of a scary, I mean, I was like in 5th grade at the time, but all right. Anyway, I don't even know why I just said that. Oh, because you're going to take out that sheet. Yeah, that's totally creepy. I'm so sorry I just said that. It's completely creepy. And especially to refer to it as something that came from a religious, yeah, I take it all back. I fire myself. Okay. the sheet that you're taking out, that's called unthingy things. Actually, it's going to ask you to do like, I'll walk you through the beginning of it. It asks you to take out two objects and put them in front of you, like on your desk. I think it even asks you to clear off your entire desk. Okay, you don't have to do that, and you're at home, and what do I know? But get two objects and put them in front of you, all of you, like right now. Like if you have the sheet in front of you, note that it says you're going to pick any two objects, like a pen and a cell phone, or a candy bar, or like a cup of coffee, whatever. You're going to have two objects, and you're going to call them thing one and thing two, like Dr. Seuss or whatever. You're going to call them thing one and thing two, and then, okay, a cat could be one. Wait, okay, hold on. Maybe I should be watching the chat for this. Oh, wait, whoa. Oh. Yes, okay, sorry. I'm catching up in the chat, but yeah. Well, but if the teacher, look, I got to take the bullet. I'm just going to take the bullet. I can't have it both ways. I think Kimberly's right that what the teacher did was creepy, and that's even why I'm repeating it. But once I'm repeating it, I don't know why. I'm just as responsible. I'm just as bad a person. I don't know, but because I put the toxicity on you, But okay, yes, like redfish, bluefish, or cat in a hat, like we're going to think of thing one and thing two. Now, each one of you is going to have a thing one and thing two on your desk. Any normal, palpable, concrete material object, again, like a glass of water and a pen or whatever. But now going to go a step slightly further and be a little bit more physicsy about it. From here on in, if I refer to thing one, if I say like do something with thing one, and for you, thing one is a pen, truthfully, from now on, whenever I say thing one, what I want you to picture is a piece of that pen, is just a piece of that pen. Like a particle, so to speak, or a bit, a fragment of that pen, and one that like will represent the whole pen. And think of some fragment of the pen that's somewhat near the center of the pen. In other words, pick a fragment of the pen that reasonably could represent the whole pen. So, a reasonably shaped small bit that's reasonably close to the center of the whole thing, what we might even call in physics as the center of mass. Okay, so when I say pen, don't think of your whole pen, really think of like the center of your pen. Or if I say thing two and that for you means a cup of coffee, think of like the center of the cup or something. So you have, oh, weird. Okay, cool. Okay, good. So you're with me, I think, based on the chat. So now you've got these two things that you've designated, like, so that you know what they are, and each one is kind of being represented by what the sheet calls TCPO, the center point of, right? So each time I say thing one, you're really thinking of like the center point of thing one. And so then I ask you to do 5 things, and you'll see them. I'm not going to read them. You're going to read them to yourself second, and then we're going to talk about them. But I ask you to do 5 things that are all similarly worded. They're all similar type of tasks. Some of them are more awkwardly worded than others, but I promise you, we've been using this sheet for a long time. So I promise you this, as weird as the wording is in those 5 tasks, I'm pretty confident that none of the wording at this point is a typo or something like that. They are deliberate. Now, of the 5 tasks, as the sheet says, maybe you've already read the sheet to yourself, I'm just summarizing it. The sheet tells you in advance that of the 5 tasks I'm going to give you, some of them are super easy to perform, like a joke, and others are so hard to perform that really you can't perform them. And that's true from the get-go. It's not a trick. Some of these are meant to be reasonably like, duh, yeah, I can do this. And I can show you in 1 second that I can do this. And others, at a reasonable level, if you look, and I guarantee you, some of the other ones, if you look at them with a reasonable interpretation, like don't overthink, don't try to over-anticipate what physics I might be trying to deal with here. And by the way, this is not a sheet about quantum physics or as much as I love all that crazy stuff, this is not meant to be crazy, at least not at this juncture. So we're asking, like, if you're a normal person with 2 like normal objects in front of you, and you're trying to do stuff with the centers of these objects, I'm saying in advance, I think a couple of the tasks I ask you to do cannot be done. And then some of them can very easily be done. And exactly all that I want from all of you right at this stage of the sheet is I'm going to, once I think it's clear, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to say go. And you're just quietly at your desk going to just try to do each one of the 5 and just make a decision about which ones are possible and which ones are not. And then we're going to have a discussion. And like it's a discussion. There's no formulas or anything like that. There is room for interpretation. That's why we're going to have the discussion. There's a lot of room for interpretation, actually. That's why we're going to have the discussion. On the other hand, it's not just a discussion of feelings. Like we're not just having group therapy, like how do we feel about objects in space and time. We are actually trying to reasonably accomplish reasonable things with these reasonable objects under reasonable interpretations. So I do think we're going to be coming to consensus, trying to come to consensus on which one of these tasks, reasonably speaking, are possible and which are impossible. Like, I think there really are answers, is kind of what I'm saying. Like, I think probably something's wrong with this exercise if we end up saying that they're all impossible or they're all possible. Like, then somehow we're not interpreting something in a way that would make this at all constructive. I think some really are possible and some are not. And we're going to find in a discussion, I'll tell you right now, I'm sure we're going to find some interesting, like exceptional ways to run around and like make an answer different. And we'll discuss those. But our goal is not to figure out ways to, our goal is not to figure out ways to make the question self-destruct. Our goal is to see if actually there's anything we can infer about space or time or the things that move through space and time. Like that's really what this exercise is ultimately about. We're going to try to figure out if we can sort of get some basic knowledge about space or time or the way the two of them interact, and or if we can get any basic knowledge about the kinds of stuff, the kinds of things that move through or occupy space and time. If we can get any knowledge about that from just these silly exercises, I think we can, of course. So I'm going to shut up in a second if it's clear, or I'm going to look in the chat, but I'm going to shut up. And I'm going to say, all of you first, just individually in your own private Idaho, just try to do each of the 5 tasks. You know, they're kind of silly, and just like make a mark at each one, whether you think it's possible or not, and be prepared for a discussion where basically, if someone says that one of the tasks is impossible, they should be able to give kind of like a reason or some. And if they say it's possible, they should be able with their hands to be like, and do it, or draw a picture if they don't want to do video. Okay, but we're going to discuss this. But right now, you're just all going to. In fact, I might even put you in breakout rooms. But let me just look at the chat. Okay, so clearly at least one person already definitely understands my question, because at least one person's already put an answer in the private chat. I'm not going to say whether I think the answer is exactly right, but the answer that I just got in the private chat totally reflects complete understanding of the deal here. So I would say to that actually, you know, that makes it, I'm going to take a flying leap here and assume that the task at hand is clear, that I've probably already over talked it. So in fact, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms to do and discuss amongst, and I will pop in. It won't be for very long, for like 10 minutes or something, but yeah, I'm going to put, can I just get a show of hands that the larger assignment is clear right now? Like what we're doing is, okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, that's fast. Thank you. Great. Awesome. I love it. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay. And again, by the way, if nothing else, if we just truck through this whole sheet today, if nothing else, then you will have done your homework and you can turn it in even before break or whatever. And it's 50 points. And that's for real. So we are doing the homework together here. And then you can also do the game thing, of course, too. But so, okay, let me put you in breakout rooms. And we're just discussing those 5. If you move fast in your breakout room, you can go to the rest of the sheet and discuss with your breakout room. And by the way, I'm happy, again, as always, like when we take these as homework, if all of your answers came from group discussions and you all have very similar answers, it's totally fine with me. Oh, wait. Oh, so yes, please. Oh, wait, let me just see the chat. What's in there? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm glad. Thank you for your honesty. That is definitely class participation points. That 2 people in the chat just now kind of admitted they need another moment. I don't mean to say admit, but that they're asking for another moment of clarification. That's very helpful. And that they did it publicly, like really, those you 2, thank you. And you should submit that for points. I should make a specific portal for that alone. But okay, let me slow down for a second, because I am going to put everybody in breakout rooms. Yeah. What I'm saying is on the sheet, which maybe I can, actually, I think I can screen share. Oh, yes. Oh, okay. I'll demonstrate the first one. Sure. But I'm not saying if the first one's possible or not, but sure. All right, everybody pause for 1 second. So, and maybe I can even screen share this. Hold on 1 second. Oh, right. Hold on. did that work? I can't even tell. All right, so I'm looking at this sheet that I just shared. And yes, just to be clear, when I put you in breakout rooms in a minute, you're going to discuss Roman numerals, like little Roman numerals 1 through 5. What you're right. And okay, I guess I could demonstrate number 1, like says, take my two objects, the center points of my two. So say these are my two objects, okay? All right, so here's one object, you can't really, here's one object and here's another object. So number 1 says, place the center points of thing 1 and thing 2 in two different points in space, okay? But at the same point in time. So the question is, can I do that or not? I mean, I don't want to jump, but yeah, for example, if I think that going like this, here's one object, it's over here at this point in space, or really the center of it is over here at this point in space, and the center of this object is over here at this other point in space, okay? So there are two different points of space. Now, if I think that somehow or other that can be occurring at the same point in time, if I think that what I'm doing right now is a demonstration of number 1, if I think that what I'm holding, and it may well be, then I would say, this is possible. This is a no-brainer. I don't see what the problem is. Here you go, Yaverbaum. This is what, like you would live, if you think this fits the description, and look, it does or it doesn't. Like it's something like this. What I'm doing with these two objects right now either totally does conform to what Roman numeral 1 is saying, or I've misunderstood number 1. And I'll tell you this too. If I've misunderstood number 1 and this is not what number 1 is saying, probably whatever I'm doing with my hands right now is probably covered by one of the other ones somewhere. Like this kind of dumb gesture is the kind of thing I'm talking about here. Like for each one of these tasks, it's either super dumb and easy, like, duh, yeah, I can do it, right? Like going like this is one of these. Maybe it's the first one, maybe it's not, but just going like this would be demonstrating one of those 5. Okay, and that's your only goal in the breakout rooms is together to decide which one of these can be easily demonstrated with like 2 hands, 2 objects. But you're going to find, and again, someone already wrote me in the private chat, like for example, you'll find that some of these, no, on a reasonable level, you cannot, like if you're interpreting however you're interpreting my words, if you interpret them consistently throughout, I think you'll find that some of them you can't do with your hands and you should stop trying and you'll just say those are impossible. So your whole goal for this is to just categorize the 5 as possible, or each of the 5 as possible or impossible with like regular everyday objects. Does that wait, so that's just, I can't see. Does that help? I can't find the chat thing. Did that help? Again, I'm really pleased that like Sarah and Marissa asked what they did, but did I address it? Does that help? I think so. Okay. Well, it is a little bit weird. The best thing I could say is I'm going to put you in breakout. I think it's a little bit weird, but hopefully you guys can help each other. But really, I'm looking for 5 answers. Each one will be possible or impossible, possible or impossible, possible or impossible. And you're going to get the full points. This is all for discussion. So no one should get too stressed about this. I guess I think it'll make itself more clear as we go. I guess if it helps, I'll say yes. I guess if this helps, I think the first one is possible because of what I just did. Like, I think this would demonstrate that the first one is possible. Like here it is. Oh yeah. No, if you're confused, any of you, whether Marissa, I think what Marissa just put in the chat is perfect. It may apply to many of you. This happens a lot in physics, actually. Oh my God, it's such a deep thing, actually, I think. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to assume something about Marissa here for a minute. I think, or I'm going to infer, she's kind of saying, I think that she kind of is okay with what she thinks the question is. She's like, yeah, I guess I get what question you're asking, but I'm not that sure that I'm going to be confident about my right answer. Like there seems to be a lot of interpretation here and I don't know about the right or wrong answers. And that's totally fair if that's what Marissa or any of you are saying. But this gets us in trouble all the time as physicists. Like yeah, that's why we're going to have a discussion. There might be some weirdness. I might end up saying something you don't agree with or something like that. But we'll find that, but don't let that stop you from trying the question. That may be why the question's worth it. I'm going to infer from that you might be unsure about your final answers, but I think maybe you do get the question. Well, we'll see, but everybody's going to get 50 points no matter what anyway. And I will lastly say this, since I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, because that's just the kind of non-stressful thing you need today. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, but when you get in there and you're discussing these things, wait, I just lost it. Why when you get in there and you are discussing these things. Sorry. Why is this not? Okay, I'm about to do the breakout thing, but if you're in your room and you're discussing one of these, yes, there will be different interpretations. Some people will say, no, I think this one could be possible if you imagine like a blah 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 with a blah blah blah, and you should listen to each other's different interpretations. But the one caution I would give you is one red flag is if someone comes up with an interpretation for one of the questions that like only applies to that question, like that implies that you'd be reading that the words of that question to mean something, but in all the other questions you'd be reading the words a different way or something like that, then that's probably a red flag. Like you don't want to interpret things, you want to interpret things in ways that are consistent as they go, for whatever that's worth. But yes, there will still be interpretation issues and stuff. So here come the breakout rooms, I think. Right. So let's go. Yeah. So the minute you get one, please go. So I won't stop anything until I see that. I won't do anything until I at least see that everybody's in a room. Like everybody should go to their rooms and do your best. And I will. Asian. Wow. Welcome back. That's a bad sign. Hey, hold on a second. I know that when I. Oh, wait, you're all back. Okay, you're all back, it looks like. Oh, boy. That's an interesting way to start. Wow. Okay. Okay, interesting. I see the thing that's in the chat. Before I even respond to what's in the chat, I'll say something is suspicious when, or something is something when I hit that button that sends the thing to all of you that says all breakout rooms will close in 60 seconds. And when immediately everybody comes back, I know that the discussion's been dead for a while, I guess, or I suspect, and that's too bad. But all right, well, oh, okay. Okay. No, that's helpful. Yeah, I kind of do want to know. I thank you, Aaron. I mean, and I want to hear follow up for what Yabo was saying. And I don't know if he's speaking for himself or for how many people, but on Aaron's thing, that's helpful too. Can I actually just stay on that for a second? Did you guys actually have were there actual discussions in the rooms? I mean, did people actually? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's a fast answer. Okay. Good. Good. I believe you. That's good. And
Yeah,
I really wanted to. Well, anyway. All right. So I want to be a fly on the wall now. I was not a fly on the wall in any of the rooms, but I would be delighted. I mean, you could. Let's just. I guess I already said. The answer to number one. So maybe we can go straight to answer two if you want. To question two. But I'd love to hear. You could tell me answers. You could put anything in the chat. But I would actually love to hear talking about whatever talking happened. So anybody who wants to report either, anybody who feels like talking would be great. And you don't have to put on your video or anything. I mean, you can. But what I'd love to hear talking about, you can even just report what was said in the room, whether you agreed with it or not, or anything that changed your mind or any. Actually, yeah, if nothing else, I'd love to hear any time that anybody changed their mind or heard anything that changed their mind about anything. That would certainly get things accelerated. But let's start. If we're agreeing that number one was possible, and you could just go like this, if that's number one, let's go straight to number two, and I'll hear anything or everything from anybody or everyone. But I'd like to say the least. So number two.
So I was saying, well, the second one's
possible. Go, Marissa, go. Yes.
You can have
yes, Marissa, yeah.
The same. Yeah. You can have the item in the same place but at a different time.
Oh, I can't hear. Wait, I'm sorry. I can't hear you guys. Wait, if Marissa's talking this entire time, you all have been. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Marissa, have you been can you start again? I just realized I've not been hearing any. You guys have all maybe been talking this whole time and I didn't know. Wait, Marissa, can you? Oh, all right. I didn't hear anything. I didn't realize I've been on the reverse. My speaker's been off. That's a disaster. I don't know how much I've missed actually. So actually, Marissa, do you mind repeating whatever you said? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. So I was saying how for the second one, you can have both thing one and thing two in two different places. Wait, same place but at different times. So you can have thing one in one spot, and then remove it, and like 2 seconds later put thing two in that spot. So it's different points in time but the same point in space.
I like it. Okay, and I like, and particular, thank you very much. And sorry I didn't hear that, but that was definitely worth saying. And what, and okay, I'm saying I like it. It doesn't end the discussion of what, like, that doesn't prove it's possible or anything. Although, yeah, I guess I think I am convinced of what you just said. That doesn't mean there isn't another argument if anybody wants to make. But I'll say one thing in particular that I like about what Marissa just said. One thing that's very concrete to me is she sort of gave me a recipe, a reproducible recipe for the experiment or the demonstration. Like she told me, even without a video, she said, like, I could take thing one, put it somewhere, and then remove it. Like somehow that was very vivid and concrete to me. I could remove thing one and then put thing two in that same spot for a while. And that would be achievement of task number two, according to Marissa. I totally like that. Is there anybody who had a different view or any objection or anything that, or a different perspective or question they want to share about that? Okay, because
So,
it,
oh,
oh, go.
sorry.
Go.
So when I first like thought about it, I forgot about the point of like removing an object, because if you place like object one down and then right after put object two down, it would technically be the same place at the same point in time. So I like after Marissa said that, I was like, wait a minute, my initial reasoning was wrong. You'd have to remove the first object and then place the other one in that same spot.
Oh, wait, that's really helpful. Wait, and maybe you're right. Maybe that's really helpful because maybe that is why that word remove was so big in my mind, like,
Yeah.
and so helpful. Yeah, I guess that does trigger that correction. But then having said that, what Alyssa's saying, then we can even maybe we can progress and say, Alyssa, so what you were thinking of until the remove word came, in effect, you were maybe thinking of one of the, like your answer would still apply to one of the other tasks, I think. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, it would apply to I think three. Because
Right.
that's
Okay.
at the same point at the same like the same spot at the same point in time. Like that's what I was thinking. But it obviously removal of one object changes it completely.
Right. Okay, but that's cool. We're covering a lot of ground. Right. Okay. So, and again, this is not to cut anybody off who wants to, but it sounds like we're trucking through here. Like, it, right. It seems that, well, let me open the board, but it does seem like between the Marissa thing and the Alyssa thing, what we're seeing is a very definite contrast between task two and task three. Is it task? Well, a definite contrast between two and three, and also a contrast between two and one, even though, and I'm going to write this down in a second. Well, okay, no, I'll write this down in a second. I'll just say. Now, this is what we have so far. Now, we also, thanks to Alyssa's thing, we also now have allusion to task number 3, which I want to get to in a second. But then we also have a Yaverbaum comment that applies to number 3. So before I even get to number 3, just one thing so far. And I do think this is, I think this is something kind of brought out by the discussion between Marissa and Alyssa, is we're so far saying task number 1 and task number 2 are both possible. Like, we're giving the same answer to both questions, but let's not confuse ourselves into thinking that that means that they're the same question or that that's the same information that we're covering both times. In other words, if I ask the class, what is 3 plus 4? And you all say 7. Okay, good, 7. But then if I say, what's 5 plus 2? Or even better, if I say, what's 14 divided by 2? And you all say 7. Now that's the same answer again, but to a very different question, right? It's complete, multiplication and division are a very different thing from addition. And it's not obvious at all that just because 4 plus 3 equals 7, that 14 divided by 2 equals 7. Not only is it not obvious, but one might have nothing to do with the other at all, right? So if one day we learn that 7 is 3 plus 4, and another day we learn that 7 is 14 divided by 2, we have not necessarily learned the same thing both days, right? Just because they both landed in the word 7. And same thing here. I just want to point out, it's vaguely interesting to me, and put another way, by the way, maybe we have learned something if we find out that 7 can exist as the answer to 2 such separate questions. Like, maybe that itself is learning something. So something about that is going on here. I just want to say, like, the very first question, can you have 2 things at 2 points of space at 1 point in time? That something about that wording is somewhat common. Like, most of us can picture what's going on there, and we can say, okay, it's possible. But then when we get to the second one, it's not at all a coincidence that I got all hung up, that I got all excited that Marissa had this one special word that she threw in to her demonstration. And it's not at all a coincidence that Alyssa kind of also was like, oh, until I thought of that word, I actually thought of something different with this one. There's something very awkward about the wording in the second one. All we did was take the wording of the first and just flip the word space and time. But we have a very different question here for number 2. Like, again, we're getting the same answer. The same answer is it's also possible, just like number 1. But it's possible due to a completely different demonstration. Like, what Marissa had to do to show number 2 is totally different from what we'd have to do to show number 1, right? And that's because what we're asking now here is we want 2 things to occupy 1 point in space at 2 points. See, I just did it wrong. The first one was 2 points in space, 1 point in time. This one is 2 points in time, 1 point in space. It's almost jarring to me. I guess what I just want to plant the seed that, like, the fact that both are possible is not nearly as interesting to me, or is not nearly maybe as surprising or noteworthy as the fact that both would require 2 completely different demonstrations to show that. Like, it is 2 very different questions, I guess, as I'm just saying. It illustrates that even though there's something very related about space and time, there's something different about them, is, I guess, all I'm saying with that with number 2. But then we get to number 3. Now we get to number 3, which indeed is the one that, like, Alyssa had in her head in a way, and we all often have in our head, because there is something about number 3 that is very, very different. Task number 3, we're saying, and I definitely want to open up discussion on this, but we're saying 2 things occupying 1 point of space at 1 point in time. This is now clearly a different question. Now, in this one, not to jump the gun, but this one, we have 1 vote for Alyssa already saying. There's something about this one that seems Sketchville. To be blunt, also, I got something from someone in a private chat, like right before all this, that also named this one, number 3, as a culprit, like, can't be done. But I would like to hear other people as well, because if for nothing else, well, number 1, I don't know what other people think, but also at least one person in the public chat has put that all of them are possible. Okay, so that's some, okay.
Yeah, I would like to disagree with Yaverbaum on number 3. I do not believe that they can occupy the same point of space at the same point in time in the confines of our experiment with two solid pieces. Can I turn on my video?
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Cool. Let me see.
Cool.
Sorry, one second.
No, please.
Cool. So let's call this thing 1 and this thing 2. The number 3 is saying that they have to occupy the same point in space and time, and you can't do that with two solid pieces of matter.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but the experiment is asking for this specific thing. It's impossible in the confines of our experiment.
It is possible. Let me explain you why. At the beginning of the question, professor said, think about center of the mass of an object. Then you think about a boomerang. A boomerang, the center of mass of an object is outside of the object. So if you put two like a boomerang-like object, you can't occupy the same space if you just consider the center mass of the thing. That's what professor said at the beginning.
That is a good argument.
Mm-hmm.
You have
It's
two boomerangs
tricky.
on your desk?
Huh?
Do you have two boomerangs on your desk?
I have two boomerang-like objects on my desk. I have like too many of those.
Okay. Wait, okay. Let me say, like right here, right now. First of all, this dialogue that I just, including, okay, this entire discussion, including everything I'm seeing in the chat right now, like including Aaron's, Erica's, Andre's, Sarah's, but specifically the dialogue between the two people that also just did use their voices, and yeah, and thank you, and one of them used video. I just want to say that no matter what I say is the answer at the end, that this dialogue right now is why there is hope for this country, seriously, or the next generation, why there is hope for science and education and people and humanity. And I mean this because we're dealing with tough stuff here. And the thing is, two people in this room just very much did directly and honestly and unambiguously disagree with each other, but they did it with what I would consider to be total respect. And I do want to pause on this for everybody, especially because this is a science class, especially because it's Zoom and it's weird and all that, and especially because it is a very strange question, right? So at some level, there is room here for things to get disrespectful. I mean, there's possibilities for things to get disrespectful, and it would be on me, on my fault in the first place, because this question has definitely some issues. I want to say the fact that two people could say what they just said and be that concrete and that direct, but still that listening, like they definitely were listening to each other, the two people. And I think everybody was listening to both. And I really do think it takes a lot of guts to do what everybody's doing. And like, really, let me go even a step further. Like each one of them, when they said something that each one of them said something that the other did not fully expect, even though both were completely prepared for the conversation. But when the minute that each one of them said something that the other, and I'm not even going to repeat what each moment was, but I really do think that you all deserve praise for being able to sit through moments like this. Each one of them said something the other did not totally plan for or expect at that moment. And each one of them still heard it. They didn't bat it away and act like it didn't happen. Like they either laughed or they acknowledged or they said something in response. Like, in other words, at any given, and I'm saying this really, especially given what this country's been going through and blah, blah, and and I've been in the science department for a long time. Like science is about being willing to disagree and have critical thought and skeptical thought in groups with colleagues, but it's totally crucial to maintain respect and all that. And I think it's really tricky to know how to respectfully disagree in science. And I think that is what's happening in this room. And I really mean it. Like if we could, it's much more important, really, and much trickier than any of the actual content that I have to offer. I'm really, so first of all, praise be amongst all of you. Because even for some of us, by the way, let me even say this too. I know there are people in the room that one of the reasons they don't talk a lot is actually sitting still while other people disagree is incredibly uncomfortable for some people. Like they get nervous, it's going to be a fight at any moment, or that someone's going to look stupid, or someone's going to be made to look stupid. Like I'm actually one of those people as well. It's one of the reasons I do do things that I am good at. I get very nervous when I'm around other people, like in like my, in family or something. If they're disagreeing, it makes me super nervous. I don't even want to be there. And I certainly don't want to say anything when other people are disagreeing. So again, I just want to say, like, to all of you, to sit through and watch while people, I think you are all to be commended, and whether you're actually the one talking or not. So that's number one. But really, I can't say it enough. Number two, and you should get points and all that. And if I'm not giving enough points, let me know. But number two, the truth of the matter is, what's possibly unfair about my whole question, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a relief or an annoying thing to hear for all of you, but the exact kind of example, okay, the kind of example that Yabo just did bring up, granted, I've never actually literally heard it be a boomerang before. That is a first for me. I've never heard it be a boomerang before, but so that's, points for uniqueness. On the other hand, Yabo is not crazy and Justin's not crazy. I hope that's clear too. Like there's something incredibly cogent and valid about what both of them are saying and demonstrating. And it's true that semester after semester, number three, this one that we're talking about now, does tend to be the most controversial. It's the one that does spark the most conversation for many good reasons. And I think that both the examples that are being given they do show careful read. Like notice Justin kind of dug in a little bit and was like, whoa, we're talking about actual real, because he was anticipating, I think rightfully so, that Yabo might bring up some quantum mechanical or some like very modern cool thing, which would be valid. But like Justin was like, no, there's a reason Yaverbaum restricted us to concrete objects here. And I am restricted. But also Yabo is saying, yeah, but there's also a reason Yaverbaum made a big deal about center of mass, center point. Like he didn't even just put it in instructions, he talked about it. Both of them are right. I mean, both of them are really right. I'm struggling here to, on the one hand, ask us to look at reasonable macroscopic material, like non-strange objects. I'm totally with Justin that I really want us to see some things about like regular day world before we push it into quantum mechanics. On the other hand, I'm totally with Yabo that I was not kidding around. Like there was a reason that I had to kind of make a point about the center. Now, so I'm going to go a step. So notice I'm dangling whether what I think is the right answer. Yeah, I guess I'm keeping us in suspense. Sorry, but go one step further. Every semester, there is generally a very good discussion that although it doesn't revolve around a boomerang, it often revolves around somebody bringing up something like a donut with a hole in the center, or even someone will often bring up like a glass, like as in a cup of coffee, but like a glass that's empty, let's say, and then they put something in the center of the glass, and it does and it's true, like if you have a glass, the center of the glass, or the center of mass, whatever you want to call it, is a point that doesn't itself have any glass or any mass there. And so then you could put a pencil there or something. And it does raise a controversy, a legitimate controversy that Justin and Yabo are legitimately embracing here. And they're both right to think that it kind of is it's not an unfair, they're both right to think that they're on point.
I think we are both right. It's just how you look at the question.
Right. Which is then brings up a very fair thing of like, what am I trying to get at with this question? And I'll even admit, and some year I'm going to be smart enough to, it's true. Some year I'm going to rewrite this question 3 so that it either fully invites boomerangs and glasses every minute or fully rejects them. I've still never made a decision, but here's what I think to everybody. Here's what I think the Yabo Justin thing shows in terms of like, yes, how are we supposed to interpret this question, whatever? The way they can both be right, but we can still sort of infer something about stuff and space and time is that it's absolutely true for any object that if we can make, okay, sorry, actually, I'll write it down. Hold on a second, but this is good. Hold on a second.
I don't want to interrupt, but the reason that I was kind of disagreeing with it is because the direction said 2 arbitrary objects, meaning that anybody doing the experiment can grab anything. I can trade out whatever I want. So to have two boomerangs, and I agree with Yalbo what he means with the center of gravity there. Definitely, I understand what he means. And I agree in the case of two boomerangs, but I think with the experiment, the reproducibility of it, because it says in bold two arbitrary objects, I can trade out that die and base I was using for this calculator and a book, and all have the same effects.
I totally hear, no, I totally hear that. And in my heart of hearts, no, and again, I also hear, yes, right. It does say arbitrary. So there's no, in other words, right. If we're going to interpret, but I do hear both of you, and I do, but yes, yes, it does say arbitrary. And I do. And what that does mean in a way is like, if we're going to call something possible, in a way, we might hope, or at least we hope that Yaverbaum means that if we call it possible, we mean it shouldn't take any kind of special arrangement or special object or special boomerang. On the one hand, yes. I mean, I like to think I did mean something like that when I wrote the sheet. On the other hand, and I get myself into, look, and honestly, all of you, this is why nothing is perfect. Even if this has a writer, even if there's only two choices to each one of these questions, every semester I look forward to this discussion in one way or another. And every time I end up feeling a little bit funny about myself, because it's true that I did intentionally say arbitrary, and I did intentionally say this is like normal everyday objects, and I want it just to be whatever you can do. But then there's some reason, why did I make such a big deal of the center point? It does rate, like there is, as much as I made a big deal about arbitrary, somehow I made a big deal about the center point. So what am I getting at here? Maybe I am leading everybody down a false path. The one thing that I think is clear is, and this is the good thing again, I'm going to say what I ultimately, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but I do trust something about this class. What I like about this class is I think everybody here knows that any individual question I ask, like the answer is meant to indicate some larger truth about the physical world. Like, right, we can get to the end of this sheet and I can tell you what I think the correct answers are. But certainly you're all going to get the same number of points, whether you put my answers or not. And more important, what we're all going to have to agree or disagree on in the end is like, by the end, well, the point is, what did I mean? What am I trying to get at? And that's a fair question. And every year I question whether what the perfect way to write this sheet is. But here's where I'm going with this. Like on the one hand, like what is the real, where I'm going with this. Sorry, I just want to praise. Like, you guys have to know, we do a lot more of these discussions generally when we're not in a Zoom thing. Like during labs, we have all these things called board meetings and stuff usually, and blah, blah. And in the past, I just wanted you guys to know like what my standard is. I mean, I love these kind of discussions and I love disagreements, and I think they're tricky to do on Zoom. But you got to know that I've had classes in the past where someone will say something, right? And one person will say that they disagree, they'll say something. And then the other person will start disagreeing with him. And what I've often done in the past, but I don't think is necessary here, we have situations where a second person will start disagreeing with the first, and I'll stop the second person and say, okay, hang on. Before you give your disagreement, can you just repeat what the first person said? Can you just say there, not that you agree with it, but can you just state what the first person just said so we can all hear it in your voice? And no matter how many times I've tried to do this, I'm telling you all, what's shocking to me is how impossible that is for most people when they're disagreeing. Like most people when they're disagreeing, or at least that I've seen, when people are disagreeing, if I just stop and ask them to repeat what the other person said, they can't do it. And what I mean by that is they'll say like, well, I don't believe that. Like, I don't want to say, I'm like, I know you don't believe it. Just say in their words, just tell us what they believe. I know you don't believe it, but don't worry, you're not going to go to like the electric chair for saying the wrong thing. Like you're just quoting them. It's like a footnote. So just say what they said. Like I've done this many times. I'll say what they said. And the person first will refuse, like, no, but I don't agree with that. I'm like, can you just repeat? And then it turns out they can't do it. They just can't do it because a lot of people, when they're disagreeing with someone else, they literally can't hear what the other person's saying. They're so fast, quickly going to what they're going to say next in response that they skip. And then the thing I don't want to overdwell, but I'm so convinced that is not what Justin was doing and not what Yabo was doing. Like they were actually hearing each other and thereby showing that this is a legitimate, there's some legitimate flaws in this. Like the question is not perfect. If nothing else, we'll all take that away from this when we're done if we want. If the question's not perfect, it's not a perfect execution of getting at something, but here's the at that it's trying to get at is this. And I think you'll find, I think that this will do honor to both Justin's point and Yabo's point, I think, and everybody else who's listening is this. Wait, we can make test be possible if, right, if, oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, wait, is that right? Right. What did it say? Wait, oh, sorry. Now I'm looking at. Yes. Okay. Wait. I'm looking at the chat now. First of all, there's one good private chat that says, I'm not going to read the person's name, but one good private chat says, can we not just say that task 3 is possible in certain scenarios, depending on the objects that are chosen? That's what a good private, and by the way, again, also this person who did in the private chat should submit for class participation points. It's a totally legitimate question. So I'm just going to read it again without reading the person's name. Can we not just say, and this is also, it's a very good spirited question, right? Like this is a nice, almost compromise, or like, can't everybody win this way? And in a way, my answer is yes. Can we not, in a way, can we not just say that task 3 is possible under certain scenarios, depending on the objects that are chosen? And that's in a way what I'm about to say on the board here, but also I'll just do honor to what's here in the chat after that. Like, yes, I mean, I think both Yabo and Justin are both agreeing it's not really about right or, not only is it not about right or wrong, but what it's really, really not about is whoever said what first. Like we're all in theory willing to change our mind at any moment in the face of data, right? And that's what I think that people in this class are illustrating. They're boldly saying that they disagree with other people because they're boldly confident that if they're faced with enough evidence, they will back off their position. Like that's what people are, and that's right. And it doesn't matter who's saying what or whatever, it's just about what's the truth. Oh, sorry. Oh God, do we? Oh Jesus. Okay, we have 6 minutes. Okay, yes, we can move on. But wait. But I do actually have to get somewhere with this. I might not even get to the end now. One thing, yes, if nothing else, it's Yaverbaum's fault. That is definitely quotable. You should definitely submit that for points. I totally agree with that. So would my wife. But now here's what I'm actually saying right here, since we only have 6 minutes. I think, yes, on the one hand, what we're saying is we can make task 3 possible if and only if the kind of objects we choose, like, so this is where we can make it possible, but here's the kind of object we would have to choose. And again, you can interpret this as a freedom or a flaw in the instructions, but as long as you choose an object that has an empty center of mass, so to speak, like that's ultimately what Yabo said. If you pick an object that's oddly shaped enough that it's like sort of a container, it could be a 2-dimensional container or a 3-dimensional container, but as long as the object has no bits of mass at all at its center, then you can do it. That is, I agree, like then you can do it. But now what does this say? What does this say to me? It says that the only way you can do, right, depending on how you interpret my whole center thing, it means that the only way you can put 2 objects together, the only way you can put the centers of 2 objects at the same point of space at the same time is if at least one of those centers doesn't contain anything mass-wise, object-wise in it, right? I mean, that's what we're all, which means, in a way, that shows like the complexity of that example. The fact that the only way we can have an ice cube and a cup, the only way we can have the center of an ice cube and the center of a cup occupy the same point in space at the same point in time is if that the center of that cup doesn't have any cup in it, so to speak. Right? In other words, stuff of some kind, like actual material, and this is what we're ultimately trying to get at, and I might not get to it by 1:30, sadly. Well, yes, I will. Here we go. I'm saying right now, for the moment, let's even drop the words possible, impossible, go with what somebody in the private chat said, okay, number 3 is like possible under certain conditions. If you pick special objects that obey this whole center thing that I'm worrying about, but are not necessarily arbitrary. In other words, for 3, you'd have to work a little harder to make it possible than the other two. I mean, I think we can all agree that 3, you'd have to work harder. It's not automatically possible. And to cut to the chase, since we are running out of time, that's true. I'm going to cut straight to the chase and say that is also true of 5, but not 4. Like, to get somewhere here, I'm going to say, and we can discuss this further in the next class. Like, you can definitely argue with me. But right now, I'm not looking for arguments just because I'm looking for, closure. I'm saying that,
Professor?
oh yeah, sorry. Is it already over?
Sorry, just going in there. I mean, I know like we're making like this big deal about given under conditions and stuff, but I think all of us, like in our math and science classes, like you learn that there's a lot of rules with a lot of exceptions. So I don't think it's like a crazy thing to say that a rule has an exception, because we learn if there's a rule, there's usually an exception.
That is very interesting. That is very helpful. I hope I don't, first of all, please submit that, but I'm going to try to remember that week. That's very helpful. It's funny that I didn't even think to say, yeah, yes, that's a good point. I'm going to go with that for the next 3 minutes, that yes, we'll consider this an exception, and it doesn't mean that the rule falls apart. I think you just revealed something about my insides that maybe I love super absolute rules and can't deal with exceptions, and there may be truth. But yes, okay, no, that's cool. That's very helpful. And do please submit that. And thank you. So I'm going to say right here, right now, and again, just so that we can get something out of this for the moment before we go, I think 3 and 5 are harder than 1, 2, and 4. I think that having 2 objects at the same point at the same time is very difficult, especially if you define object specifically enough. And I think similarly, having 1 object at 2, while I can have 1 object at 2 different times at the same space, I can have 1 object. This is number 4, right? I can have 1 object at 2 different times at the same space, awkward but true, or 2 different times but the same space, or 2 different times the same space, either way, or 2 different times the same space, but I can't have 1 object at 2 different spaces the same time, like normal everyday. Before we get to quantum or anything like that, what am I getting at? Why are we even having this whole discussion, especially if we only have 1 more minute? We will pick this up Monday, but here's what I really want to say, and why everybody does have a valid point, but why it's valid anyway. The things that cannot do 3 and 5, things that cannot do 3 and 5, and here's an answer to a further question of homework, I would ultimately call particles or material things or massive things or some other word like that, but ultimately particle, things that occupy space and time but cannot do 3 or 5 is what I would call stuff, particles. But I maintain that there's a whole lot of things, and this is where the Justin thing does come in, like things cannot do 3 or 5. But there are a whole lot of unthingy things. There are entities. I know it's 1:30. I'm going to say this sentence just to leave you with something, and we'll pick up next week. But there are tons and tons of entities, real, actual entities, existent phenomena, things that exist in space and time in a measurable way. I.e., there are entities that exist in the world of science. There are entities that travel through space and time, occupy space and time, can be measured, can be predicted, can be analyzed. And yet, many of these such entities do not get restricted by number 3 or number 5. Such entities are, and I'm not trying to trick anybody, I'm just trying to say something. I think heat flow exists. I think sound exists. I think sound occupies space and time in a measurable, predictable way. However, I think right now someone could interrupt me and tell me that we have to go. And if they did, then every one of you would hear my voice and their voice at the same time. You would hear my sound hit your eardrum at the same time as someone else's sound would hit your eardrum. That's what an interruption is, right? Or if you've ever listened to any music in your life, you know that that's what a chord is, like, 2 notes at the same time. Of course you can hear that. Of course 2 notes can hear your ear at the same time. That's the difference between sound and noise, or something. Similarly, 2 electrical currents can be in the same place at the same time. 2 colors of light can be in the same place at the same. And also, furthermore, 1 sound is not in 1 place at one time. I can't even say where a sound is at any given moment. Yet sound, heat, light, electricity, electrical current, magnetic fields, gravitational fields, all these things are real entities in space and time that move measurably and predictably, quantitatively. They occupy space and time, yet They are not restricted by number 3 nor number 5. And they, here's my last point, are actually the subject of this course. The reason we spent all that time on simple harmonic oscillation is just to build up things that move through space and time but aren't particles, such as wave pulses, such as light pulses, such as electrical pulses. That's what this course is really about. That's what the exciting aspect of physics, I think, is really about, is stuff that isn't stuff. Stuff that moves through space and time, but is not restricted by number 3 or number 5, immaterial stuff. That's what the course is really about. But I know I'm totally over. I'm so sorry. Have a great break. I'm just going to go. So, well, thank you very much. Yes. And I'll get your test back. Hopefully. Have a great break. Don't do any work. Just, or catch up. Have a great break. Sorry. Bye. Great discussion. Bye. Oh, and I have to wait. Right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Have a great break. Yes. Great. Great.